everybody, your favourite Uncle Frog here again. Now, I was going to talk about medieval torture this time round, and I'd had a chat with one of the strong Stiltons in the fridge, and he was going to strap me into this thing, and everything would have been fine. However, I got a memo at that point from the MEB, the Medieval Entertainments Bureau, and they said that you can't do that anymore. Apparently, it's not considered entertainment. Used to be, but not anymore. So, not wanting to get into trouble, I thought, well, what can I do with this thing? So I thought, let's talk about shields. Now, if you are an Anglo-Saxon reenactor, you've got two options, really. The standard option, of course, is a round shield. And down here, I've got my round shield. Now you can see this one is quite a big thing. This is, I think, 90 centimetres round. I'm going to show you the back there. It's a fake and make, which means that it's not made from linden or poplar planks. It's got popular plywood inside it, but it's been lined front and back with linen, and I've stitched a rawhide edge to it. That would be a standard, and that absolutely fantastic for fighting in a shield wall. You could, if you're doing later period stuff, you could do a kite shield. And back in the mists of time, when I was but a young wee tadpole, there was actually an argument going on over whether or not kite shields were curved or whether they were flat. I mean, if you use the things, a flat kite shield just doesn't work. There's a lot of kind of later period, well, a lot of evidence. There is some later period evidence from a carving. I'll see if I can find it, but it's I think 1100-ish, 11 something or the other. Yeah. Anyway, I'll put the picture up. It's a carving of some Norman knights, and it's clearly curved kite shields at that point, not flat. There was a lot of people arguing, looking at the Bayer tapestry, kind of going, "Oh, that's clearly flat. Oh, that's clearly artistically kind of put in, and it's curved." Blah 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 blah. Then we come to the next thing. This is my shield that I prefer to use when I'm fighting. This is obviously a lot smaller than the other one. And you can probably see that it's a lentic. Lenticular. It's curved over all the way round. This causes arguments. People get very angry over this. Can we or can't we have them? If you're fighting in a shield wall, you're going to want that big one that I showed you. I think if you're in the Greater Fjord, that's such a simple thing to build. That's your bog standard shield that anybody would have. However, if you're fighting one-on-one, you don't want anything as big as that. They're not particularly useful shields if you're doing a one-on-one fight. If you're skirmish fighting, something that size, again, it's not particularly handleable. And there are some pictures showing these what appear to be lenticular shields. I know I'm going to get into trouble for saying this. So, it depending on which reenactment society you're in and which way the wind is blowing and what the general fashion is, sometimes people are going to say, yeah, we think we had them. Other times people are going to say, no, I don't think we did. I admit there's not a lot of evidence for them. I don't think there's any direct grave evidence for them. But when you look in the manuscripts and the tapestries, it's always very difficult when you look at these things because they didn't do perspective particularly well. But some of them, I think you can't argue that they were flat. I think you just have to say, no, they were lenticular. but there wouldn't be a lot of them. And so if your society says no, you can't have them, then that's fair enough, honestly. I fight in the SCA. I think there probably were a few of these things knocking around. When somebody comes along and says no, the preponderance of evidence is no, then I will stop producing them and I will stop fighting with them. But I do like them, and they behave extremely well as a one-on-one, you know, like a tournament shield, because your fist slips into the grip, but the grip is inset into the boss, so your finger is only just kind of on the boss, if you know, just off it, like a millimetre or so. And this curves back. I mean, you can see that it just curves. There's just a gentle curve on it, not a lot, but just a little bit. And it curves back, and that means that you are not trying to support this kind of on the grip. It's more on the wrist where the weight balance is. Makes it a lot easier to fight with, I think, anyway. Some people come along and say to me, whoa, yeah, whoa, there's a steady on there, Mr. Frog. You can't make one of those. Well, yes, you can. It's not going to be easy. You're going to be playing around with thin pieces of poplar or linden, or lime wood. You're going to make a thin piece of that, and then you're going to damp it down, and you're going to bend it, and you're basically making triangles, and you're going to laminate all those together, and then you're going to cover it in linen or in leather, and then you're going to sew it through. It's not an easy build. Definitely not an easy build. And so that's the reason why, if they had them, then they would be like a high status item. They wouldn't be for your standard kind of, here, have a spear, have a shield, and you know, protect us from whatever. They are not a simple build. I'm doing the cheap version of this, and so what I use is I use the right wood, so we end up with the right weighting. So I use 4mm poplar plywood. This is 70 centimetres circular. Sorry, 70 centimetres circular. What am I talking about? God damn it. Right, okay, let's try to do that again. It is a radius of 35 centimetres or 350 millimetres. It is a diameter of 700 millimetres or 70 centimetres or 0.7 of a metre. Yeah. You need two of these things, and you need to take a nibble out of each one. One of them, you take a slightly longer nibble out of, wider nibble out than the other one. So you take a triangular section out, and one of them is slightly wider because obviously they sit on top of each other, and one of them is bent in a little bit more than the other one. And they go onto this clamp, or this press, or form, whatever you want to call it, which is this thing. So this is how it works. Now, at this point, I have to say, sorry, Matthias. Because a very nice chap contacted me, and he said, how do you make this? And I sent him all the details, and then he said, do you damp form that? You know, do you kind of you know, damp down the plywood before you put it in? And I never did, mainly because I'm an idiot and I made life far more difficult for myself. At this point, it's a light bulb. The light bulb went on, and I went, oh yeah, maybe that's a good idea. So I tried doing that, and it works. It's so much easier. Why didn't I do that before? Because I'm an idiot. And then you just drop those two things in, and at this point, you have on this axis here, you have one of the slits that you've cut, and on the opposite axis you have another one of the slits, and you cover it in PVA glue, and clamp it down there. Stick this bit on top, multiple clamps. You also clamp it round the edge as well to hold it in place, and you leave it for a couple of days, and then it's set. Yeah, that's basically it. I won't do that on camera because it's boring. It's just me kind of clamping something in place. I will stick up a photograph of what it looks like once it's all clamped in, and then I'll get back to you once it's kind of like set and dried and all ready to rock and roll, and I can talk to you about the next exciting stage. And hopefully at that point my strong cheddar cheese will have stopped being grumpy and have found something else to do. Vast amounts of glue. Now, I don't normally drink coffee. I have drunk a couple of cups of very strong coffee, so I'm going to try not to gabble too much and speak too fast, because I'm feeling a bit hyper at the moment. Anyway, where have I got to? Well, I've been... No, not a good place to start. Let's start over here. So, I showed you a couple of pieces of wood being put into that shield form, and this is not the one that I showed you. This is the second one that I did. So this is the second one. Obviously this bit on the front here, that's not going to stay. Wouldn't work particularly well as a shield, but it's a good example of taking something out of the form and then discovering that it hasn't quite glued down as it should do. And so here I had to squidge some glue back in again and clamp it a second time round and hold it in place, and when I take that out it should be fine. The important thing to remember, of course, is any part of the form or any extra bits of wood clamps that you put on, put some gaffer tape on the side that's going to go onto the shield, because otherwise you might find this becomes an integral part of your shield and you wouldn't want that to happen. Of course, I've never ever done anything like that. You would never catch me doing anything as stupid as that. So, the one that was in the form, I've been working on, because this is I'm doing a partial swapsy for a helmet. And this is where I've currently got to with this. This is as far as the guy who's making the helmet for me wants me to go. He's going to put his own boss on and fittings and other bits and pieces. So here, as you can see on the back and on the front, I've put a layer of material. On the back it's one layer, on the two it's front. I've done this with linen thread and vast amounts of glue. I've done this with, did I say linen thread then? I think I am gabbling a bit. Way too much coffee. Linen, just linen. In the past I've done this with Hessian and with cotton, but they don't work particularly well. I mean, I'm not sure if it's actually correct or not, but I get the feeling that the linen takes the glue and takes the paint better, but also retains a degree of flexibility. With cotton, it often seems to be quite brittle, and this works quite well for laminating the shield. If you've ever fought in a life steal group, you'll know the problem of having the shield smacked with a sword and getting blowout on the back of the shield, where a chunk of the shield kind of like half pings out, and backing it seems to stop this from happening. And the linen seems to absorb a little bit more of the power of the shot than cotton does. It might be my imagination, but it seems to work for me. Okay, the next thing I've done, as you can see, is I've sewn on, not nailed, but sewn on some rawhide edging. Now, back in the good old days, you would use dog chew and, take the dog chew to pieces and have to sort it out. But these days you can buy strips of rawhide off the internet, which is quite nice. So that's what I've done there. I have this exciting piece of cardboard here, as you can see. It's 15mm by 20mm, and I just use that as a gauge here. So 15mm down, 20mm across. Go round, mark off where I want all the holes to be, and then take a small drill and bang a whole load of holes. Ooh, a whole load of holes. Ooh, that's kind of funny. Put a whole series of holes. Too many holes. Anyway, holes all the way around in using a drill. The drill needs to be just a little bit wider than the width of the eye end of the needle. And then you just saddle stitch through. I tend to double thread it, so I make up a loop of thread, and there's a needle here and a needle here. Pass it through, and the knot ends on the back. We can find a knot. So there's a kind of one of the knots here. And then just saddle stitch it through. So I've always got two threads front and two threads back, and just sew it all the way around. Takes a long time to do, but I think it gives a nice finish. The shield I made for myself, I blued the fittings for all of that, and I made some other bits and pieces as well. I'll put up some stills, because I took some still photographs ages ago of what I did there. And you can see here that there are also some kind of like long pieces of steel, and those pieces of steel were bent round to form a clinch staple. Now, I made a mistake with this, that I should really have put a rivet front and back on the clinch staple, but I didn't do this, and I've lost one of the clinch staples because of this. So now I need to remake one of those staples, and this time round I will put a rivet front and back to stop it flying out, and that'll just work better. As you can see, everything there's been blued. All the small pieces I can just drop into the oil, and that works quite nicely. With the boss, I don't have something big enough that I can just drop it into. So what I did was I hung it up on a wire through one of the rivet holes, and I covered the front in oil, and I used one of these gas burner jet thingamajigs on the back of it and carefully heated it up. Obviously you shouldn't do it in a cellar room without any windows, because that would be bad. Not that I did that, of course, because I'm not stupid. Yeah, and so all those fittings blued, put on. As I said before, the grip sits inside the boss, not just on the back of the shield, and that changes the way in which you carry the shield in your fist. I think that's really just about it, actually. Yes, yeah. Vast amounts of glue. That's basically what we need for this project. A lot of glue. Glue's good. So I hope you've enjoyed this video about vast amounts of glue and lenticular round shields. And, if you have, then there's also the things you do, like the comments, the subscribings, the ratings, and all that kind of jazz. And I'll see you next time on Uncle Frog's Endeavours.